Hi, my name's Rowles and I'm the dietitian here at Dorothy House. Normally most of my work is done with patients. However, today I'm going to talk to you about nutrition for carers. So for those people that are looking after relatives, friends, partners who are unwell. So why is nutrition important as a carer? I don't need to tell you that caring is an all-consuming job. It takes a lot of time, effort and emotional resilience. Good nutrition is a vital part of looking after yourself and meeting your health needs. And actually, poor nutrition can have quite an impact. So, for example, things like on immune system. So it's really, really important that in order to be well enough to look after your loved ones, you're well yourself. Good nutrition has a really positive impact on energy levels, on mood, on strength, and overall well-being. So what is poor nutrition? It looks different for different people. So in terms of carers, lots of people say to me that they struggle to eat enough, particularly if they're very busy looking after someone, and actually that can lead to them losing weight and ultimately strength, physical strength. It can also be the opposite. So some people find that they're eating too much and gaining weight, or they might be eating the wrong types of foods because potentially that's what they're having to feed to their loved one. And so they might end up gaining weight. And that combined with maybe not having time to exercise. It can also be about the quality of the food people are eating. So it may well be that you're eating enough, but actually it's not enough of the right kinds of food, so people can end up being deficient in things like calcium or iron, which again impacts how you feel. I'm also just going to touch on hydration as well, because it's really common that people don't drink enough when they're looking after people, and again that can be for a number of reasons. So what reasons might nutrition be poor for carers? That there's a number of reasons. One of the main ones that I hear people say is worry and anxiety. We've all had periods in our life where we feel anxious or worried about things, and it has a real impact on appetite. For some people, they don't have an appetite and they don't want to eat. And for others, actually, it can be an emotional crutch. So they might eat more when they're feeling stressed or worried or anxious. Sometimes people talk about feeling guilty. So particularly this might apply if your loved one doesn't want to or can't eat. There can be some guilt around eating in front of them or preparing food when actually they can't eat that themselves. Fatigue is a big one. It's exhausting looking after people. And actually sometimes the last thing you might feel like doing is preparing food, cooking, or even eating. Quite often people will report they feel there isn't any point eating or isn't any point cooking, particularly if that's something you've always enjoyed with the person that you're caring for. And maybe that feels like that can't be enjoyed anymore, maybe because they're not feeling they want to eat. And so people might feel like there's sort of no point in cooking and preparing food. Time's another big one. I've said before, it's an all-consuming job. It's a very busy job, caring, and actually finding the time to eat, cook, prepare food, shop can be really difficult. And also financially, it can be a big burden caring for someone. And that may be because you can't work because you're caring. It may be because of a loss of income from the person that's unwell, or it might be about a change in benefits. But we know how expensive food is, so finance can have a big impact on people's eating. So when we're talking about nutrition, which areas are important? The first thing I'm going to talk about is fluid. Arguably not necessarily nutrition, but as important. Hydration isn't just about feeling thirsty, and actually some people don't feel thirsty at all when they need fluid. Fluid it's got loads of uses. So it keeps joints lubricated, it keeps your immune system functioning, it keeps organs functioning, particularly the kidneys, helps sleep, brain function, mood. So it has an immediate impact, but also a longer term impact if you're dehydrated. It doesn't matter what you drink, bar alcohol, which obviously is dehydrating. Nothing else is dehydrating, so it's a bit of a myth that maybe tea and coffee isn't hydrating. It doesn't matter what you drink. It can be tea, coffee, water, juice, squash, fizzy drinks if that's what you enjoy. It's just about making sure that you're hydrated in any way you can. If you're struggling to drink, it can be more liquidy foods, so things like fruit, soups, they can all provide hydration as well, but it's really, really important to try and keep yourself hydrated. Some people find things like setting an alarm on their phone to just make them have a drink can be quite helpful. So another area of nutrition that's really important is protein. Our body uses protein all the time to keep us strong, basically. It's a building block of muscles. But it's also about wound healing and cell growth. So it's really, really important that we get enough protein. It's often overlooked. So there's loads of sources: meat, fish, eggs, peanuts, nut butters, lots of sources of protein that are important. It's really important to try and have it with each meal. You often see pictures like this in the media of how the ideal protein intake looks. But actually, protein can also look like this. It can be easily accessible, cheap and quick. So things like baked beans, eggs, ham, tuna, all those things are just as good as a fresh cooked piece of salmon for providing protein. So another area of nutrition that's important are carbohydrates, or sort of bread, rice, pasta type foods. They're really important because they provide energy, which you're going to need if you're caring. They also provide fibre, which are really important for keeping bowels moving as well. So sources, as I said, things like bread, rice, pasta, potatoes, all really important sources of fibre. And again, you'll often see images like this, the ideal sources of carbohydrate, but actually, again, it can be really accessible. So these are also examples of different sorts of carbohydrate that we'll all have in the cupboards. Things like toast, chips, baked potatoes, they're all cheap and easily accessible and, most importantly, quick. So fats are another area of nutrition that are really important and are often overlooked. They're a really good source of energy and calories. And if you're not managing to eat very much, in those instances where you're finding it hard to find the time to eat, actually fats provide a really good source of energy where you don't have to eat that much of it to provide your body with more energy. So sources, things like butter, cheese, dairy, oils, nuts and seeds are a really good source. If you're struggling with keeping weight on, so you're losing weight, don't overlook the sort of unhealthy fats, if you like. Things like crisps, chocolate, cake, because they're very quick and they provide a good source of energy and they're easy to eat. So again, another image of sort of ideal fat intake. But actually, often the more accessible forms of fat will look like this. So as I say, things like biscuits, cheese, butter, crisps, they're things that you can grab that are going to provide you with energy and calories to keep you going. So lastly, I'm going to talk about fruit and veg. Yes, it's important and it's a good source of vitamins and minerals and fibre, but it's also very low in calories. So it's just important to think, and I guess the thread throughout this is what's good for one person won't necessarily be good for another. It's good to think about whether you're someone that's potentially not getting enough food or someone that's having too much. If you're someone that's losing weight and potentially struggling to eat enough, it's important to be mindful not to fill up on fruit and veg, because although it does provide useful things, it's really, really low in calories, and sometimes it can take the place of something that actually might provide more energy. Also, it doesn't have to be fresh. Great if that's available, but actually tinned, frozen, dried, it's all just as good, and it's maybe easier to keep. So there's a picture of how, a lovely picture of rainbow fruit and veg. But again, it can also look like this. So dried fruit, tinned fruit, frozen peas, frozen sweet corn, you can get any veg frozen. They're all really good and just as high in vitamins and minerals and fibre. So in summary, nutrition for carers depends on your individual needs. For some people, they might be needing to think about eating more, and other people, they might need to be thinking about restricting their intake a little bit if they're gaining weight or maybe eating the wrong foods. So it's worth having a think about what your individual needs are. A few tips that might be helpful. Think about using convenience foods. You don't need to be cooking and preparing everything fresh. it's okay to use microwave foods, frozen foods, packaged foods, tinned foods. The most important thing is that you're eating it and that it's accessible. Meals don't need to be traditional, so they don't all need to be meat and 2 veg. Actually, beans on toast with some cheese on is a really nutritious meal. So it can be quick. There's no pressure for it to look maybe as it has traditionally. Think about snacking. It's not something people are always used to, but actually, if you're not managing to find the time to make meals, snacking can be a really good way of just getting in some energy and keeping you going. If you are going to cook meals, or if someone's going to have the time to cook meals, think about making larger quantities and freezing a couple of portions that you can come back to. And lastly, if you are struggling with guilt or not knowing whether your loved one is struggling with you eating, it's worth, if you feel able to, having a conversation about it, because the chances are they want you to stay well and you need to stay well and strong in order to support them. So if you feel that that is something that's there, it's worth having that conversation if you feel able to.